Hey guys, welcome to another video for anatomy and physiology. In this video, I'm going to be highlighting the muscles that are responsible for what's called hip flexation. And there's two parts to this. I'll make a second video for the second part. There's the anterior portion and then there's the posterior portion. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the muscles that are responsible, the anterior muscles that are responsible for hip flexation. So there's three things that I want to highlight in this video. Number one is the action, okay, what that entails, and then the origin and the insertion of these muscles, and then finally the innervation, which is just a fancy word for the nerves that that are embedded into these muscles and cause the movement. So let's go ahead and dive in. So to get to these muscles, we have to get very, very deep into the body. And you know, these muscles, I'm going to highlight them. There's two primary anterior muscles that are responsible for hip flexation. And you know, these muscles, I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention to these when I was in anatomy and physiology, because I kind of, you know, there's a lot of muscles, and you just kind of tend to dismiss the smaller ones. And you know, we focus on the bigger ones like the quadriceps group, the hamstrings or biceps, triceps, and so on. But these muscles are actually responsible for something that's fairly common, lower back pain. And as it turns out, your hip flexors, your hip muscles, okay, are very much connected to or one and the same as the muscles in the back. So as you can see here, that these muscles, okay, they start off on the back and then they make their way through the hip, and they make their way anteriorly, okay, towards the front, towards the hip portion of the leg. So again, so the action of these muscles is the hip flexation. So you know, if I'm laying down and I want to get out of bed, I typically lift my upper body, right? Or if I'm going to do a sit-up, so that's one portion of the action. Now, let's say your back is in a spot where it's not going to move and you want to lift up your legs, then this is the same muscle group that lifts up the legs. You know, let's say you're doing bicycle kicks, you're working out the lower abs. When you're doing bicycle kicks, when you're lifting up the knee to the chest, when you're on your back, these are the muscles that are at work here. Now, of course, as I mentioned, there is also a posterior portion to this, okay, and we'll get to this. This is like the glutes and all that, and all the minor glutes that are on the posterior part of the body, but we'll talk about those in another video. All right, so let's jump into the first major one, the largest one of the two that we're going to discuss. This is called the psoas major. So this is the primary one for the back pain that's caused. So you know, like I mentioned before, I wish I would have paid more attention to these muscles, because I didn't realize that my back pain was very much connected to my weak hips that I had, and vice versa. So as you can see here, my starting point, my point of origin for the psoas muscle, it goes from the T12 vertebrae all the way down to your L5, your lumbar 5. So that's that classic lower back pain spot that most of us who have this issue feel. Now, actually, I don't have that issue as much anymore, because I have been paying more. I do pay more attention now when I work out. I pay more attention to making sure that I stretch those hips and that I work out the hips, and also the glutes. I'm telling you, I didn't realize that by working out my glutes, I would actually help my lower back. It's pretty fascinating how the kinetic chain, that how all these muscles work together. It's kind of like in a symphony, as I mentioned before. When a symphony is playing and you have one instrument that's off, it's going to throw off the whole sound. And likewise with the body, especially when it comes to muscles, you have this long kinetic chain of muscles that orchestrate complex movement. And if you have one of those muscles that's off, then it can throw off everything else. I want to just interject real quick here. Something to keep in mind is that you notice that when the leg is lifted up, the muscle is shortened. So two times that the muscle can be shortened, one is when you're contracting, and the other is when you're actually sitting. Think about it. Like, most likely right now you are sitting down to watch this video. As you're sitting down, your legs are bent. Your hips are already bent. That means that psoas in the iliac muscle is already, it's not contracted, but it's shortened. So when we spend hours on end sitting down, we actually weaken our hips, we weaken those muscles that will in turn betray us and cause us back pain. So that's just another thing to keep in mind as we go along in this video. And so in any case, so like I mentioned before, your T12 and your L5 are the point of origin. They're attached to those vertebrae right there, that muscle. And then it wraps around, it goes to the posterior, your back, and then it's in your hip. And I've removed all the intestinal organs here. It goes into your hip, and then it wraps around to the anterior portion of your hip, okay, your pubis. So that's that hip flexor area that I was talking about. And then it wraps around, let me see if I can, it wraps around, and then it attaches itself to the femur. That's the femur right there. Now let's go, there it is, on the posterior side. So this is the back side, so this is the glutes. I've removed the glutes, and you can see here that this tendon is attached to what's called the lesser trochanter of the femur, okay? The lesser trochanter. So let me back up so you can get some perspective. So it's right here. This is the area where it's attached. So let me go ahead and rotate again to the anterior portion of the body. So that's the psoas muscle. Now let's talk about the iliacus. Now the iliacus muscle's point of origin is on the ilium, okay? And there's this space here that's like this empty kind of bowl-like space, and that space is called the fossa. That's where the muscle is attached. So it's got a pretty broad area of attachment to the hip. Okay, so it's on the fossa. It's also on the iliac crest. And then just like the psoas muscle, it wraps around through to the anterior portion of the pubis, okay, the hip flexor. And then it shares a tendon. This area right here, it shares a tendon with the psoas muscle to attach to the same place on the femur, the lesser trochanter. Sorry about that. Right here. All right, so that's the action again is hip flexation, lifting up of the legs and lowering of the legs. So like when you're doing a sit-up and you're getting out of bed, you lift up your upper torso. That's this group of muscles right here. Or let's say you're laying down and you're pivoting off of your back, and then you lift up your knees. You lift up your knees to your chest. This is the same muscle that's doing that. All right, so point of origin, insertion, and action. Let's see, what else did I say I want to talk about? Yes, innervation. Let's talk about the nerves that innervate, that communicate with the brain, the nerves that communicate with the brain to these muscles. All right, so getting now an anterior view of the nerves, or the spinal nerves, I have highlighted here in blue the femoral nerve. This is the femoral nerve, and as you can see, it kind of follows the line, for the most part anyways, it follows the line of the iliacus, okay? Now, in the iliacus, as you can see here, the ilium, this is where the fossa, this is that space I was telling you about, where the iliacus's point of origin is at. So this muscle, the iliacus, is innervated by the femoral nerve, and then the psoas muscle, which is connected to the spine, is innervated by what's called the anterior rami of lumbar spinal nerves. The anterior rami is kind of the anterior portion, if you will, it's an anterior branch that goes around and hugs the psoas and the abdominal muscles as well. So those are the two nerves. I'll put those up right there on the screen so you can see what they are. These are the two nerves that innervate both our psoas and our iliacus muscles. Okay, well, I hope this video helped. I will be making another video addressing the posterior muscles of hip flexation. So thanks for watching, and good luck in your study.